living legend of hair loss has returned. The beast is back. The Top Gun Maverick of hair loss is in your face. You know, I checked out the videos of your response to my new hairstyle and new haircut. And what's funny is pretty much all of you really like it. And we need to talk about that. We don't need, oh, I'm great. I can pull this hairstyle off. Even with diffuse thinning receding hairline, I can pull this off. No, that's not what this is about. This is about me taking a risk. I've made videos before talking about men who take more risks in life are able to experience more success along with that failure. And a lot of men are not willing to take risks with their hair, especially when they notice their hairline changing and their diffuse thinning kicking in at whatever age. They think, well, okay, well, I need, and somebody had said my previous hairstyle, they named it scalp coverage, and they said that I was just like one tweed jacket away from being a high school history teacher. I think that's hilarious, and I think definitely there's some truth in that. You know, a guy who's pushing forward to look like that with a scalp coverage hairstyle versus the guy who, speaking of Metallica, I mean, when I think of James Hetfield, the lead singer of it, he's got somewhat of a receding hairline, maybe not as bad as mine, but as he got older and he had his hair shorter, it actually made him tougher. And somebody had even said in the comments that now on the masculinity scale, I'm up to a number 9, not quite 10, but at least I'm up to a number. And let's face it, the Jeep helps. I mean, you've been watching those videos about the Jeep, like that totally definitely helps. But you know, if I feel like it, I can shave off my hair if I feel like it. But ultimately, I'm embracing the hairline. I'm embracing the diffuse thinning. I'm not hiding this in any way. I almost feel if I shave my head, it would make the hairline less obvious. Even if I had it, even just at number 1. I think there's nothing to deny here. Like, what you see is what you get. And what you're saying is, you like this better. In the real world, people are liking it too. In theory, it's not a whole lot different. And it's funny because the way my hairstyle is, compare that to back in April when I had the long hair. I think some people said it was like pompadour or whatever it was. It was basically like this. It was short on the sides. I think I had it at number 3 or something. But then it was long and pushed back. This kind of still gives that vibe, that impression when you're standing in normal distance away from me, like 4 feet away. It almost kind of, and I'm looking in the selfie screen, it almost looks like it is just like longer and kind of pushed back. But I think this is surprisingly a very flattering hairstyle despite the hairline. Now, again, I took a risk. I could have played it safe. I could have remained doing the scalp coverage hairstyle, or I could have shaved it all off, which I will eventually when I feel like it. But I knew that it was going to be a gamble with this hairstyle. I knew there was a good chance I could come back, shoot a few videos after I got the haircut, and it was just going to really look bad. Now, granted, some of you can decide for yourself as it coincides with the 1 year of me using BRB shampoo. If you look back in the old video, if you think that my hair actually is thicker than, I don't know. Remember, my whole thing is never to tell you what to think about that. You be the judge. But ultimately, it was totally a risk. And not that I was afraid when I was doing it, but I just thought, okay, well, if it looks too bad, I will just go ahead and shave it off the zero guard buzz cut, and it's gonna look bad for the next couple months until it's about 2 inches on top again. But now I know I can pull off 1 inch on top, despite what thinning I do have. Now, granted, I will say probably what helps a little bit is using the blow dryer, and of course using just the basic hair gel I have. And Maxwell Smart, the resident barber of this channel, had explained that ultimately I am better off in, this is kind of being one of the weakest parts. Instead of just letting it kind of fall down, he said just go ahead and push it back. And that's basically what I'm doing. Hair gel, I just kind of pushed it all back and just let it be. It's short but messy, and it's kind of spiky depending on how you look at it. So hopefully this serves as motivation for a lot of you that have a similar hairline and diffuse thinning. It's funny when you can take a risk like this and get away with it. It's almost like you get more street cred like from it. People will, and I've said it so many times in other videos, men who embrace their perceived weaknesses are seen as stronger. Imagine the paradox, imagine the irony. So I'll say it again because I just made that up. Hopefully I can say it a second time. Men who embrace their perceived weaknesses are perceived as being stronger by everybody else. So, okay, yeah, here's a guy who's almost 40. He's got receding hairline, but he's got the spike hair. He's okay with that. He's not trying to downplay. And you know, a lot of guys with this hairline do the scalp coverage hairstyle, which, you know, I did that for a while, but it's something about me is, as long as I have the choice, I'm never going to keep the same hairstyle. I'm always going to mix it up because I get bored, I guess, with having one style of hair. And I think ultimately the psychology of it is I've always believed that I would eventually be so bald that that would be the case. I mean, that's what I thought as a teenager. And here I am almost 40. And I mean, granted, my hairstyles are limited to some degrees, but I can still pull off a lot. And I will admit, I definitely am surprised that I can pull off this hairstyle and it looked this good. I will admit that. But it's funny because at some point you have to say, even if you have your doubts about it, a hairstyle, once you do it, you're going to get the rest of the world's reaction to it. Some people didn't really notice or care at all, but people who made a comment to it, they specifically said, it looks better shorter like that. That really suits you. So sometimes you can't really know reality until you find out from other people. Now granted, there is a difference between caring what people think versus getting feedback by taking that risk. But ultimately this video is about taking that risk with your hairstyle. Knowing that sometimes you make a decision with a hairstyle and it ultimately would go in the category of a failure. This ended up not being a failure. There's going to always be some people who go, "Oh, I don't like that hairstyle," because they want me to shave my head or grow it longer or whatever they want me to do. But overwhelmingly, people approved of this hairstyle. And overwhelmingly, people watched those videos. There was like an easy 400 views for some of those videos about me just saying very casually, here's my hair. So the free market has decided that Nick Shell can pull this off. So what does that say about you? You may have a better hairline than I do. You may have thicker hair than I do. And now you've got confirmation that you can pull off just 1 inch on top. A #1 guard on the sides and the back, blended with the #2 guard. And you saw me fix my hair. I got a towel, blow dryer, a little bit of gel, and I'm done. It doesn't get messed up, other than I guess if I wore a hat and matted it down all day. But even then, it shouldn't be too hard to fix. Get some water, do like this, done. It's funny because when I was a boy in the 80s, in the early 90s, I had spiky hair. It wasn't until junior high that I didn't. So like specifically from 1st grade and up until 6th grade when I got a flat top, but I had spiky hair. Now, granted, it was the late 80s, so I had a mullet, but who didn't? You had the long hair in the back and then spiked on top. That was normal in the late 80s and early 90s. And then finally, 6th grade, flat top, which would be shorter than this, and cut a little bit different. And then in 7th grade, I had hair, but I am surprised that I can pull this off. The reception, you know, Rotten Tomatoes, this would be considered fresh as far as this hairstyle goes. And I think that's part of what's fun about this channel. Even if you don't even care or worry that you go bald, I think something exciting about this channel is that you can basically, you can live vicariously through me and project your own hairline with whatever hairstyle that I have. And that's definitely the case when I, every year and a half or so, shave off my hair. I give a lot of guys the green light ultimately. Well, you do it too. I did it. It works for me. I'm happy. And I think that's something we need to consider in closing. Something we need to consider is when it comes to hair, you ultimately do what is an extension of your identity. You work with what you got. If you feel good about it, then you do it. And obviously, you're going to feel good about it when other people confirm, despite your possible doubts, that you could get away with it. People are like, oh yeah. And it's especially assuring when it's such a low maintenance hairstyle. I mean, there's nothing to this. Like when I go back in a month, I don't have to worry about describing, okay, well, it needs to be like this. And no, I'm like 1 inch on top, #1 on the sides and the back, blended in with the #2 guard. That's all this is. Not to mention, it's gonna, as it grows back, it's gonna take a while to grow back, and it'll still look good then. So, thank you for the confirmation. Now, not only do I know I can pull this off with my diffuse thinning and receding hairline, many of you can. And many of you have better hairlines and thicker hair than I do. So that much more you can get away with it. Your comments belong right here.